Hi, everyone, and welcome to El Camino de People, the podcast, episode 60. Today, amazing, we are already on episode 60. We have a great interview. We are going to be talking about the Camino de Santiago again, the Camino de Santiago with dogs, and also about different caminos, because one of the things that we realized when we start walking is that you keep adding more and more caminos to your list. It's incredible. I don't know how this happens, but it happens every day. So let me introduce you to our guest today. How are you doing, Colby? Thank you so much for being with us finally. I don't know when was the last time we chatted, but it's been kind of like postponing one thing or the other, but finally here we are.
Yeah.
You know that this is going to be recorded, but it's so fun to have you here and finally chat about your Camino.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Well, for having you, because the other one that you hear behind that is the beautiful Maverick. That is just...
Yes, he'll make an appearance, I'm sure, at one point. Come on. You can hear him cry. There he is.
Hey, he was the Camino too. How are you doing,
Yes,
buddy?
the Camino too.
Hello.
He has a stick. Okay, that's all that
matters. There are things in life that what matters for
it
you.
Matters more than I do to him. So
come on, I don't think so.
He's very stick obsessed. He is.
Really?
Uh-huh.
That was a little one, so he doesn't care about the size or whatever it is.
Either enormous, so he can take out everyone in his path, or so small you can't see it. Mm-hmm.
That's hilarious. That's so funny, yeah. Animals and dogs. Anyway, I want also to remember today, we have finally a couple of the pilgrims that do the Camino. They created sometimes companies, and we have a company that has partnered with us and is going to help us in our nonprofit business and all the projects that we're going to do. And it's the Camino Gin. I don't know if you drink gin. I don't do much,
but I did see you had that the other day.
But
that's awesome.
I'm like, this is so cool. Camino Gin, thank you so much. I'm like, you can listen to the interview on the podcast, and he's going to be given, €1 of every bottle he sells will be going for all the nonprofit projects. So thank you.
That's
and
amazing.
For anyone, you can join us, and it's such beautiful and all these little, details.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So cool. Anyway, every time we start an interview, we have the 1-minute questionnaire. So here's the list. And you have 1 minute. The whole idea is so you can answer as many questions as you can in 1 minute. It's just, a fun way to start the interview and just to get thinking about the Camino. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. Your first Camino.
The Francés.
How many Caminos?
2.
A month to walk.
Anywhere?
1 city.
Ajes.
1 meal.
Ooh. Paella.
A memory.
Arriving in Santiago.
A song.
Oh boy, I don't know.
A sad moment.
We got turned away in Hornillos, and it was really sad.
A happy moment.
Finisterre.
1 color.
Red.
1 smell.
Rain.
Canteen or Camelback?
Camelback.
Fisterra or Muxía?
Oh, Fisterra.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
A drink?
Water.
A backpack brand?
Osprey.
Okay, wow, you did pretty good. Usually people got stuck there, they get scared. I don't know. I'm like, they're just questions. So
some of them I didn't give a good answer, but that's okay. Pressure.
That's the whole thing, the pressure. So people sometimes, they throw whatever, when I was writing this, a month to walk, I was thinking of people answering me, 1 month, like January, February, but everybody thinks about a whole month to walk. So
because we want to walk for that long.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I'm like, yeah. And the problem, we get, more in freaks, let's say it. We are Camino freaks and walking freaks. I'm proud of it. But it gets to the point that 1 month is not even enough time.
Nope, it isn't. No.
So what do we do?
I got to break it up. I mean, I met a lot of people that were doing it. They would have a week at a time, and they'd do a week and a week and a week.
I know. But for me, sometimes it's like, also I want to be like a hospitalero, but sometimes I'm like, I will have time in the future to be hospitalero. I think right now it's time to work, but then it must be such an incredible experience. But
We're so indecisive.
Yeah, it is. But that's life, here. And that's why the Camino is now full of freelancers and teachers. Yes.
But
if you go with your computer, people will be, look, the guy that walks with the computer. I'm like, yeah,
but I can work and walk at the same time.
Yes. So that's the thing. But
yeah.
Anyway, my biggest question, I'm from Pamplona. All the
Mhm.
pilgrims go by here when the Camino starts. We are the city of the running of the bulls. But one of the things that surprised me the most, because for me, the Camino is right there, like in front of my
Yeah,
window.
that's so
And
cool.
it's been always there. And a lot of my friends, they haven't even walked it. They don't even think about walking it one day. But
Mhm.
here it is, the worldwide right now. We have people coming from Australia, from Korea, from Taiwan, from all around the world,
Yeah.
religious, non-religious. So my question is like, how did you find out about the Camino de Santiago?
I first found out about it. I was a freshman in high school, so I was 13 years old. And I've always taken Spanish classes, and
Okay,
my
so hablas
Spanish,
español?
yeah, sí, sí, sí. And my Spanish teacher at the time, The Way had just come out. And
Okay.
so she said, hey, this is like a really big thing. It's really cool to look at the cultural stuff of it. And so my mom and I went to this tiny little indie theater in Concord, New Hampshire, and saw it, because it was an independent movie. And I said, wow, that's amazing. I want to do it someday. And then I ended up leaving college my sophomore year. I was really depressed. And so got pulled out of college. And I said, well, if I'm going to leave college, I want to do something that's worthwhile. I'm going
Mhm.
to walk the Camino. And so that's how we ended up doing it. I did it the next summer.
Wow. So you're one of the ones that have to thank Emilio Estevez for doing the movie. I think we have to create a list of Americans and citizens worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. No, that movie, it's become really cool for Spanish classes. I teach at a high school now that I went
Okay.
to, and they do a whole unit using that movie and going through different parts of Spain and different cultural parts of Spain. So it ends up being a teaching moment too. And it's
It
just a
is
good
also,
movie.
it is a great tool. A lot of people, they think that the Camino is that movie, but I think it goes much farther. But I think it's as a first connection,
Yeah.
it gives you the little, Camino bite. It gives you the energy to just, I'm like, I need to know more about this. This way you go in the Camino, you realize, I'm like, okay, maybe not everything is like in the movie, but it is close enough.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot harder than the movie. you
Really?
know? Well, I mean, maybe I don't know. Our Camino was kind of hard when you have it with a dog. We didn't have it easy. I cried a lot.
Because of him, or
It just it made it different and it made it difficult. There wasn't for us, we didn't have the albergue
Mhm.
experiences a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so we didn't get to just have a place to stay all the time. We carried a tent we found where we could. So it was different, but it was just a good time. So
So
worth
how
it.
do you decide? You're in your last year of you're finishing college, you decided to skip and go ahead and do the Camino. You're with your dog that is not even 1 year old.
Hmm. Yeah.
How did you decide? I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm gonna do the Camino with my dog. I'm gonna travel from the States with my big dog because Maverick is not a small dog.
No.
So for everyone that think, traveling in Spain with a dog is difficult, I'm like, there's
Mhm.
ways, but I can imagine how hard it was for you and also expensive to make your way from the States here.
Because like I mentioned, I left college because my depression was really bad. I ended up in a hospital for suicidal
Oh,
ideation. So Maverick is a support animal, a
okay.
psychiatric support animal. So that's how he's able to fly.
A
So
lucky
he
guy.
flies right in cabin with me on my feet. Even though he's a
Oh,
big dog, he's just right on my feet. And yeah, so we flew Boston to Paris and then over to Biarritz. And it was a long day of traveling. And we got into San Juan probably 8 at night or so. And we started walking the next morning at 6 a.m.
so he was
So,
gonna be part of the Camino since day one.
yes. Yep. I said I want to do it with my dog. And, all the forums and everything say, don't do it with your dog. But
Again, one of the things that I realize, and with so many years right now, talking with people, with nonprofits coming to the Camino, with pilgrims, I'm like, don't follow any rule 100%. Just find your own Camino. Sometimes you may fucked it up, and that's also right. That's also part of the Camino. But
yeah.
sometimes you have to discover by yourself. And I think those lessons that we learn sometimes the hard way are better.
Yeah.
And in your case, you are a living proof that the Camino can be walked with a huge dog, and coming from the States can be a little more harder and more difficult to set up. But
Mhm.
here you are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I 100%, it was so worth it. And obviously, I did it again because we went to Italy the next year and we'll be going to Portugal this year. But it's not something that I would recommend all the time. It definitely changes your Camino experience.
Totally.
So, if that's something you got to weigh out.
But it's like everything, a lot of times I'm thinking about doing the Camino by bike with my friends, and I know that will take part of the Camino away.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes I'm thinking about doing the Camino with a tent, and I know that takes part of the Camino away. But at the end, I think we all idealize the Camino Frances as the whole perfect place that we know is not real. It's a magical place that happens during that period of time and that period of space. But all of the other Caminos have great things, and probably, also thanks to Maverick, you were able to meet so many people that would like to pet him, play with him. So many other situations probably happen. We will get it later into that. But each Camino, we interviewed someone a while ago, and like, there's only one Camino and it's yours.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So how, you are there, you have a depression and that's one of the things that I love of the Camino, that, for Spaniards, we haven't figured it out yet how to use the Camino as a tool for people that are suffering different illness, but the worldwide, there is people coming here with cancer. There is right now, groups of soldiers with PTSD that come to the Camino. And for me, when they share their experience and I'm there, I'm like, wow, and I thought that I'd had a hard life. And I think that's the beauty of the Camino, that is a perfect place for healing for everyone. Yeah. But I guess that probably your family and friends, when you told them, here I am, I'm going to go to Spain to walk more than 500 miles with my dog. See ya.
Yeah.
How was your family and your friends' reaction?
I'm always the person that's just going to go and do. So my mom kind of was just like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. She just expected that of me. But I think there was a little bit of the fear there, obviously I wasn't in a good mental spot and it was just me and Maverick. A lot of people go with a friend or something. So, and I was 20 years old when I started. I turned 21 when we arrived in Santiago. So,
that's a way to celebrate.
Yeah.
That's better than going to Vegas. For sure.
I know. Don't think I'll top that birthday, but yeah, I think there was a mix of fear, but also there's no stopping me once I have something in my head. I'm a very stubborn person, stubborn or determined, whatever you want to call that.
Way. Yeah, sometimes a little too stubborn, but it's okay.
Yeah, so I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I made it happen.
And what about your doctors? Because you were saying, you're 20 years old, you're done with the dog, with no one there. I'm like, you speak the language, but the distance and also the time schedule, were they supportive? Were they someone on the other side that were like careful, or?
No, they're really supportive. My therapist was all for it. So yeah, I mean, people were extremely supportive when I went to do it. The random people online that when I said I was going to do it with a dog, not so much. But yeah.
And also one of the things, when I talk about planning, I'm like, and usually, stubborn people, we used to plan everything. You're a teacher, you probably have everything planned every day, but minute. Did you plan your Camino, or you were thinking, what the heck, let's let it go? But also going with the dog, sometimes you need to plan a little ahead because of there's a lot of things that people don't think. But I'm like, also the size of the dog in terms of food, that means that your dog needs a lot of food during the day.
Yeah.
So how are all those things going on when you start planning your Camino?
Yeah. So for me, I would be the one that would just be like, whatever, so be it. I'm just going to go for it and it'll be fine. But since I had Maverick, I couldn't do that. So I did so much research. I looked up so many different things. I switched over his food because you got to have a brand that's available in Spain. So I had to research what dog food was available in Spain. I had what places, because when you're on the Frances, there's not that many big cities. There's a few.
No, there's a lot of little spaces, but if you are picky and things like dog food or, a brand or something, that may be difficult. That's true.
Right, like think of walking through those little towns. There's no pet stores there.
No.
So I had to figure out, all right, how much food do we need for this section to get to this section to refill, and I did so much research because I wanted to stay in albergues. I wanted the pilgrim experience. I had my tent knowing that it wouldn't always be possible.
Yeah, just in case.
But I had found all these things about albergues that allowed dogs and everything. So I had a big, nice plan. I got a list of them. This one's going to allow it. Yeah, that went out the window. So everything that I planned didn't work out, but I did plan.
So you made it. You go to Saint Jan. You are there in Saint Jan. Were you able to stay in an albergue or?
It was like a private kind of thing. It
And you
was
can say private names, if they treat you well. I really like it when some people, because I know the Camino is getting bigger with dogs, and also with bigger dogs, it's usually even more difficult. So if there was anyone, that you feel free to sort it out. I'm like, we need to also, give these guys a sort out. And now with the business and everything, sometimes, helping these little
yeah.
places to stay and being open for everyone, some of them deserve it.
There were some amazing ones, definitely. The one in San Juan was a private place, so it wasn't like a communal albergue.
Okay.
It was a little beyond the main town. But the two that I absolutely loved that really made the experience was one was in Ortega. We stopped
Okay.
there at Casa Bastan. They were awesome. And then the other one was in Ajes. It ended up being my favorite town on the whole thing, and it was El Pajar. And they had two albergues, and we had an entire albergue to ourselves. All right,
Wow.
so because
That's Camino in style.
yeah, I mean it's Ajes, so most people walk onto Burgos,
Yes.
So we stopped in this little town, and they're like, "Yeah, the dog's welcome. We actually have this annex. There's no one else there today. Have the whole place." So it was great. I mean, it
It
was
is
fun.
incredible, that at the end, everybody goes to the Camino with the experience, that these amazing towns or these incredible albergues that we listen in every little forum, oh, this is amazing, the donativo, but then the people is really what makes the experience. And for you, little places like the ones you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't because of the place or whatever, it's because of the people and how they treat you. And that's what is amazing about the Camino.
Yes, 100%. It's all about that. Yeah, the people, really.
So how was the beginning? A lot of times we know that people go to the Camino with expectations. Suddenly here you are, you travel all the way from the States with your dog. That's a long trip. And then you start walking up to St. John. How was it what you expected, or was different?
It was different. It was definitely different. The first week was definitely hard. And I'm a very confident person, so I was like, yeah, it's gonna be great. And I live in New Hampshire. We've got 48 mountains that are over 4,000 feet. We hike all the time. I had just hiked Mount Washington. It's the tallest mountain in the Northeast. We hiked it 2 days before we left. So everyone that
Wow.
yeah. So everyone that was like, "Oh, it's so hard the climb from San Juan up to, and over to Roncesvalles," I was like, "I'll be fine. We hike
Piece
all
of
the
cake.
time." Yeah, no, that was hard. Hurt
Going
times.
up or going down, because everybody complains about the going up, but I know that for most people also, they like when they start going down, they're like, no, the forums and the webs and all the YouTubers are lying. Going down is the worst part.
I don't think going down was the worst part, but I was so tired by that point. I remember I sat down on a rock in the trail, like just to rest, and I think I fell asleep for a little while on the way
Wow,
down.
that's
So
the first one. Little nap. When in Spain, do like a Spaniard, I guess, taking naps along the Camino.
yeah. Is that there's a little like food truck that's on the way up
Yeah.
too,
Hmm.
and he's got the map of it on the
Yeah.
side of the truck. I remember seeing that, and it was only like, oh, 2 kilometers left of going up before you start going down. I thought that was a lie. That was way more going up than that.
It is about 2K, but it is probably, and sometimes it depends on how sunny or how foggy. The last time I was there was super foggy, like you couldn't see
Oh
like
yeah.
100 feet in front of you, so tricky. We even have to rescue a lady that was going with flip flops and no jacket, no nothing. So
Oh
be
boy.
careful.
Oh
And what
boy.
about the little guy? No little guy. What about Maverick? How was being in a French country?
Um, French was fine, I guess. They didn't we don't know French, so we know Spanish, and so they don't like to talk to people that don't know French. But we just spent the one night in Saint Jean and then walked on the next day. So he was good. He
How was the
carried
thing
his
for him?
pack.
The experience getting to St. John, all these people, all these smells for a puppy.
Yeah, I know. It was something that I wondered because that was the first time he had traveled, like, does he understand? We just got on a plane and now
And you
we're
just went
across an
from to a
ocean.
total different world suddenly out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Everything
you
smells
know?
like baguette and croissant and coffee and cheese. And what am I?
Right. No one's speaking the language that I mean, not they know what we're saying all the time, but it must sound different.
For sure, yeah. Even
Um,
dogs and animals, I guess, also.
yeah, so he saw his first cows when we were crossing the
Oh,
Pyrenees, and some sheep and stuff. So he was interested in that. A little bit scared, I think, but no, he did awesome. It was a 2 flights, and then we were on a bus from Bayonne to Saint Jean. So we were all packed in there. with a bunch of different people, but the fellow pilgrims were awesome, and we ended up with them for the first 4 or 5 days, and they were great, and everyone loved Maverick. He was the favorite pilgrim for sure. For the first couple days, nobody knew my name. I was just Maverick's
You,
mom.
you are
You know?
the person that goes with the dog. Usually
Yeah,
happens with dogs, babies. They are cute.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody's like,
Mhm.
yeah, probably
Yep.
don't even need to feed him with all the food
Yeah.
that people will give him.
Yeah. He's a food snob, so he doesn't like carbs. He's watching his figure apparently.
Oh, so he's like one of those American healthy dogs.
Yeah. So we would get people would try and give us bread, like the bread man would come and deliver bread in the morning, and
Hmm.
they'd be like, "Oh, does the dog want some?" And Maverick would just spit it out, and I'd be like, "I do. Thank you."
So how was the first week? You go here, you came to the Camino looking for, probably unplugging for your life over there, just disconnecting from everyone. But people were probably, getting in line with you, checking with you. And how
Mhm.
was the first week? Kind of like, because I think that that's the biggest change, your first 5, 6 days till when you go from your urban mode till your pilgrim mode.
Mhm.
How was the
Mhm.
process of getting into the Camino?
Um, it was hard, I think. We It was like a shock, not a shock to me, but it was different than I expected because we ended up alone a lot, you
Hmm.
know? And I think I went in with this idea of like the Camino family that everyone forms with the people they walk with.
Yeah.
And walking with Maverick, we would walk really, really early to try and beat the heat because he'd get hot. So we ended up not being on the same kind of schedules as other
Hmm.
people, or we weren't in albergues. So we were alone quite a bit. The first week was hard just adjusting with him too and figuring it out because it was mostly about him, let's be honest. So Pamplona was the first really rough part, actually.
What? But it's a beautiful, amazing, incredible town.
Yeah,
Great
loved it.
people.
It just so happened that he got really sick our night in
Really?
Pamplona, and I was panicked. He threw up a ton. And
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Hmm.
Have I pushed him too hard? Like this isn't for him. I've made the wrong
Hmm.
decision."
Yeah.
And I think it came a lot of, when we go on a pilgrimage, we know what we're getting into. We
Yeah.
know, like,
No, he
all
wasn't.
right,
Yeah.
we're going to
Your
walk.
plan, your brain, your body is kind of like,
Yeah,
yeah, I know
we
what I'm.
understand that every night we're in a different place
Hmm.
and we're just going to get up and walk every day. He didn't know that. I mean, as we hike all the time, we always come back to home.
Yeah.
So I think it was just him kind of acclimating, but
Hmm.
I carried his pack ever since then because I was like, oh no, he's not going to be
Oh,
okay. So that was our first hard night. We did get lost once in the early morning, so that was a rough time the first week. Um, but
did
then
you do
after Logroño, we were good.
anything special with Maverick, like special tricks, special things just to keep him entertained, the water or some food or something? People may be thinking, what do you do with a dog? I'm like, with a kid, you play, you give him an ice cream, whatever. But with a
Yeah.
dog, I guess, how did you change your everyday routine to the Camino routine?
Um, well, we just do everything together anyway, so
Okay.
that was kind of normal for us. He's a huge fan of water,
Okay.
loves to swim.
Hmm.
So anytime there was water, we had to swim. So we had to
Wait.
stop. Yeah, well, I didn't. I stood on and I threw a
Oh,
ball
okay.
at him.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I would dip my feet in. But
Mhm.
he would swim and he would chase rocks and sticks and have all this fun. So we definitely slowed down. That's probably the best part of having him on the Camino was it made me slow down.
Mhm.
It made me take everything in. He was always chasing different butterflies around, so we'd
Time to
watch him
think.
chase the butterflies, or he'd go swim in the river, or we'd have to find a different way down to the river, or we'd have to go off the Camino into a different
Mhm.
town to find a store for food. And it was all these things that I wouldn't have seen if I didn't have him. I wouldn't have gone through that town to get to that river access without him. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have gone off the Camino to find that store. So it was really cool that I got to do that because I had him.
And a lot of people, and I know the people that walks with dogs, one of the things that is hard sometimes is that going into a restaurant or a bar
Mm,
or going into the supermarket just for food.
yeah. I didn't find that really hard because you guys have so many outdoor seating options.
Mhm.
I just sat outside all the time. It was beautiful. and he just hangs out by my feet. So when it came to going into things, that was probably the biggest part. We got over it as we went, but when in that first week I was really nervous about leaving him
Mhm.
anywhere, and I just leave him tied out to a street lamp or a chair leg or something and have to go in and get whatever I needed. But yeah, I didn't end up going in the cathedral in Pamplona because I was like, oh, I can't leave him outside alone,
Mhm.
you know. But yeah, so that was the biggest part.
And as the Camino go, will you go into the Cathedral in Leon or Burgos? I'm like, what? How did you manage with Maverick?
Yeah, so we ended up making a good friend that I'm still in contact with now. She became like my Camino mom, and she happened to be in Burgos when we were there, and she's like, "Oh, I'll watch Maverick." So I got to
Oh,
go in the Burgos Cathedral, and she had Maverick. And when I came out, she said all these other pilgrims are like, that's not your dog. That's Maverick." I guess everyone was so mad that she had Maverick. She's like, "That's Maverick. That's not yours. Where is Colby?" Because she's like, "I'm watching it. She's in the cathedral." So everyone knew Maverick at that point. Yeah.
yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I guess
So
that's probably one of the few places that will be hard to see dogs getting in. Churches and
yes.
museums and less. But and also in Spain, I don't know if we have the kind of dogs that can fly. We don't. People don't even know that kind of animals, support animals exist
Right.
yet. So I
Yeah.
think as we probably things get going and dogs are normal in bars and
Mhm.
stuff, but hopefully in a couple of years we will be seeing more
Yeah.
animals going everywhere.
I did find a big difference in Spain with the idea of dogs. It seems that big dogs aren't dogs that go places in Spain, from what I got.
Usually because the regulation, if you have a big dog, it's just so hard to get it anyway. And a
Yeah.
normal tiny dog, you can get it in a bag, you can go in supermarket, you can go anywhere, you can go on the bus, on the train. But if your dog is big,
Hmm.
that means that you almost have to travel everywhere by car, or just, if you're on a plane, he has to go on the cargo area.
Yeah.
So as
Yeah,
a
it was
dog
like the big
owner,
dogs we saw were working. They were guarding stuff. They
yeah,
were, and it was the little dogs that were the pets that
yeah.
got to like go in walks around places that we saw. And so when we were walking down streets of Leon or whatever, people would cross the street to the other side. They'd pick up their chihuahuas. They were scared of him. I got asked so many times if he was a wolf that I just started saying yes because
Better. Yeah, and a lot of people are scared of the big dogs because there's so many also tales of the Camino, dogs biting pilgrims. And like, there's one every 1 million, and of course, the dogs are taking care of the sheep or whatever. They are working, as you were saying, they are
yep,
workers, and
yep,
they're just taking care of whatever business. And if you go to your business, they will bark at you, and they will go. That's it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, how was your start going to Camino? First week is over. How is the feeling as you start getting more into the routine, getting more into the Camino spirit? They always said that the Camino has like 3 stages. I don't
Yeah,
know if you felt the 3 stages in your Camino.
I definitely did. It was like the hard beginning, the meseta, and then the nice end. We loved Galicia. It was beautiful and green and wet, and loved that.
And how
Meseta
was the
was
Meseta? Because the Meseta with Maverick and long distance and probably more heat and
yeah. So we would get up by 4 at the latest every
well,
morning and start walking. We would be done walking and to where we wanted to be by 11 because it would just be far too hot for
mhm,
him. No shade. Um, I had bought booties so for him because people had said that the tar could get really hot. So I thought,
yeah.
okay, I'll have booties for the tar. You're really never on tar. But I found that the little pebbles of the paths were
Yeah.
hurting his paws. So we'd have to wear the booties through the whole Meseta part because it was
And
all
he
little
like it?
pebbles.
Because I heard a lot of pilgrims, with dogs that the dogs hate it.
Oh, he loves them.
Oh,
He,
really?
well, yeah. I mean,
So
he
he's
loves
like a
them now.
fancy dog also?
He just no. He at first he looked like a kind of drunk duck, right? And then he just got used to them to the point where he'll lift his paws up for me to
Just
put
to
them in.
really?
And yeah,
That's
and
so
then because
cute.
he knows he's like hiking when he has them
Yeah.
on. So as soon as he has them on, he just
I
takes
know
off.
this is gonna be fun.
Yeah,
We're going
yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, and then he's totally used to him. The only problem was if he ever found any water, he just likes to go in the water, but he'd have his booties on. And
And
then they
he
would
doesn't
get gross
remember.
and wet. And by the end of the Camino, those things smelled bad.
And
So,
that's what also, I never asked, but what do you do, for yourself? You clean yourself, you take a shower, but how do you manage in the Camino with the dog? I'm like, I don't. It's not like you're gonna take it to the bed or to shower, or how did you? Because
Yeah.
as you say, we smell. I bet they smell too.
I just he got kind of smelly the first day, and we shared a tent, so that was gross because he was laying in mud puddles. But he's a pretty clean dog in
Okay,
general, so I don't have to worry about him showering or anything. He's pretty clean.
okay. We'll just
Yeah,
get to the water and normal
yeah.
leave
I'm
it.
like, yeah, you're taking a bath in the river. You're
That
fine.
count. That counts.
Yeah, yeah.
And as you were going, how was the connection with your family and friends as you were going to the Camino and they seem like, he's making it. They are still there. No news, good news.
Yeah. No, I talk to my parents every day.
Okay.
Normally it was night for me, like right before we would go to bed. And I would call my mom, and it would be like she had just gotten out of work or whatnot, So I'd talk to her so she knew where I was, because she worries, of course. And like I said, I
Of
was
course,
20 years
like
old. I
everybody.
was still a
And
kid.
even, I'm older and my mom is still every day. I tell her where I am. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I do remember I made them panic so many times, because I'm that person that's like, if I'm having a bad time, I'll like call my mom, right? And I'll just say how awful this is. And I know she can't fix it at all, but I just need to get it out.
yeah.
And then I'm fine. And now she's panicked. So I would do that to her
Just
a
pass the
lot.
panic on.
Yeah, yeah. When we got lost leaving Ortega, we left at like 3 in the morning, okay? Because it was going to be a really hot day. I was like, oh, we're going to be great. Ended up in the middle of this field, no idea. It's pitch black, okay? It's the middle of the night still. I remember calling my parents, because for them it was maybe like 10 at night or so. And I'm just crying. I don't know where I am. And they have my location on my iPhone. And they're like, you're just in the middle of a field. We can't help you. So that was my communication with them. I mostly communicated when I was having a bad time.
That's usually, what we do in life. I guess you ask for, but when everything's going right, why not?
Yeah, everything's going right. I was like, nah, you don't need to know.
And how was, for you? You were going to the Camino with all of that carrying your backpack. When did you start processing all, you say, we know the first week is kind of like get into the Camino. I don't know if you start, a lot of people, they said that the mesetas, when they start thinking about the stuff that they carry. How was it for you?
I think it was honestly mostly unconsciously thinking about it, and how the majority of it, I didn't think I was accomplishing anything that I set out for. I set out and I was like, this is going to be my way to say that I've beaten depression, like I'm okay now. That's certainly not the case. You don't just beat depression,
No. Anything.
Yeah. So a lot, and like I said, it was hard. I was crying a lot of the time when whatever was going wrong, and I was like, wow, I'm certainly not beating depression here. But by the end of it, it took probably until the last few days before Santiago that I was like, wow, I've got some clarity. I know what I want in my life. It's hard when you have depression and it's like living in a fog and living in black and white, and you don't see beyond what you're in. I did not make plans. I did not make connections with people, because in my head, I didn't know if I would still be alive, because I don't want to be alive. So I didn't make a future plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was able to clear that fog and see just how much of every aspect of your life that depression just takes from you, and able to move forward through that. It didn't fix it, but I was able to see again.
But I think you hit it right on the spot. I'm like, a lot of people, they go to the Camino thinking that the Camino is gonna fix things, but the Camino doesn't fix anything. It just gives you the time and a space for you to think and get some, as you were saying, some clear whatever. For some people it is in Santiago, for some people it's when they go home, for some people it's on day one. But
yeah,
I guess sometimes the expectations and so many beautiful movies about the Camino and people finding the light and the love, and no, sometimes it's a walk, and it's whatever you can make out of the walk. But I guess most people, they discover by the end, and we discover by the end, that it's just that special place that allows you to think more clearly, maybe, and to have some time with all the fog that is on a normal day. But and I guess that's why we keep coming back for that boost that we need. This is going to be like the vaccine. I'm like, you get the first one, it gets you going. That's kind of like the strong one, but I need my booster.
That's so true. Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's true. Right now, there's doctors worldwide prescribing walk, and
Yeah.
I think no safer, more rider with everything in the world that the Camino. And the Camino Frances is the perfect one for your first
Mhm.
experience. It's safe, it's super.
Definitely.
A lot of people they ask, women in the Camino, and you were a
Mhm.
girl on your 20
Yeah.
years old with
Yeah.
your dog going in the Camino. Did you
Yeah.
feel safe all the time? There was it any time that you feel?
Yeah, I felt perfectly safe the whole time. There was one weird incident, and that was it, and that was totally fine. Um, that could have been in part because I'm very naive and trusting.
Mhm.
It could be in part because I had Maverick. He does make having a big German Shepherd next to you makes things really nice. I wasn't afraid to walk around the city at night. I had Maverick stay back. But yeah, I felt completely safe the whole time. Don't be like me and just leave your backpack around. But I would leave my backpack. No one would take it.
That's
But
also another
also,
thing. Some people coming from the States, they think, oh, you can leave everything. Here we are a little more
yeah,
picky, and sometimes you need to be with an eye on your wallet. And the Camino
yes,
has
yeah,
thieves. There's a lot of thieves in the Frances. There's also police undercover in the Frances taking care
yeah,
of pilgrims. Yeah,
that's awesome.
but sometimes things happen. But
Yeah,
as I always say, if you put a place with so many people, with so many different places like the Camino de
mhm.
Santiago, the amount of things that had happened in the Camino, I'm like, they don't even get close to any small, safest city in the world. So probably it's the safest place in the world to be
Yeah,
for anyone.
yeah. I felt completely safe, and yeah, I mean, when I would leave my bag somewhere, Maverick was tied to it. So again, he's
Again,
kind of a deterrent for anyone. But
so
yeah,
put a
no,
maverick on your life.
yeah, yeah, nothing. No one made me feel strange. No one. There was no one. I didn't worry about anyone following me or
Mhm.
anything. Even in the cities, it was fine. It was very safe, and like you said, it's just such a great time because it just strips you back from everything, and your life just becomes wake up, walk, find a place to stay, and there's just that simplicity that you need
That
sometimes.
that is for me, that's what I always said. Why the Camino is so special? Because it's so simple. You repeat one day after another,
Yep.
and it's just fun stuff. Even it has moments, when you cry, you go
Hmm.
and you want to go to hell and everything, but that's also part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
then it's repeat again.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
And what about the pilgrims? When you walk with pilgrims, a lot of people, one of the things that for me surprised me the most was people openly, the people will share their life story with you on day one on the Camino. And like things that you even share with your friends, people will
Yeah.
be right there. I'm like, I know you're a pilgrim. I don't care. I'm just going to throw everything on you. Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm normally a pretty private person. And yeah, it's just something about the Camino, I guess. Like you said, people just want to open up, and that's definitely something that was kind of like a shock for me week one. You just start walking with someone, and 2 minutes in, you know their whole story.
Yeah.
And
And some of
that's
those
just
are,
how it is.
mhm.
That's
Um,
not weird there. That's
no,
normal.
it is.
Yeah.
And will you share your story with the pilgrims, or will you keep it a little more personal for you?
No, I didn't really share it that much. Um, I don't even really remember why I said I was walking it to them normally. It was my thing. Um, but I knew in my head what I wanted it to be. But like I said, it's what you want it to be isn't what it's going to be. It's going to be exactly what you need it to be.
And that's why I always say, the Camino has a Camino waiting for you, no matter what you want or when you
Yeah.
want it. A lot of people, they think, oh, this is going to be the life dream experience, blah, blah, blah. Like sometimes it may be crappy until the next day. And then you arrive to Santiago, and the next day you're going home and suddenly it slaps you in the face and you're like, what the heck?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But that's the beauty of the Camino.
It really is. Yeah.
And then, for anyone, you became an author, writer, and like right now you are hiking all over Europe.
Yeah.
The Camino was your first experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
we would do day hikes, but for that was a first long distance kind of thing for us. Yeah.
how was the feeling of arriving in Santiago?
I was pretty amazing. I'm not a So I told you I cry all the time, but I'm not like an emotional crier when
Yeah,
things are moving. So I didn't cry. I know a lot of people when they arrive in Santiago, it's like tears and
yeah.
they feel all that. It was my 21st birthday, and we had stayed just outside of the city so that we could walk in the early morning. Because by the end, I had really loved when no one was around. We had really gotten into that groove of it was just me and Maverick, and there was no one else in those early mornings, and it was beautiful. So we woke up and we walked into the plaza in front of the cathedral at, it might have been 4 a.m. when we got there, and there were just 2 other people there, and we just laid down right in the middle. No one else was there, and got to watch the sunrise.
Wow.
And that was something that you can never put into words,
But that's the beauty of the Camino. It's one of the things that you try to explain to your friends, and I guess probably you have this conversation many times with your friends. I'm like, yeah, how do I explain to you? I'm like, this is something super simple. It is so meaningful, but there is nothing really special, but it's super special. I'm like, if I have to explain the Camino to you, that means that you're not going to understand it. And if you already walk it, you just know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell everyone, I'm like, as cliche as it is that life-changing. It is. You're never going to be the same after you do a Camino. And you won't know it till you do it.
As you were saying, it's not that life-changing that you go, I don't know, you have, and became like super millionaire, or you write or whatever, but it is that moment in your life that is an after and a before.
Yeah. Yep.
It's that simple. For some people, it's just, from now on, I'm going to be doing one walk every year, or you're having a lot of time and you take a Camino picture or whatever, podcast or, Instagram or whatever, you're like, I remember the Camino. Or you wake up and you see, something from the Caminos.
Yeah.
It's nothing like huge. Like, I think a lot of people, they think that, your whole life is going to be, you're going to have an aura of, freeness and clearness. I'm like, no, life goes back to normal. And the Camino, as we were saying in the beginning, is that fake wall that it's incredible, but it's fake. We know that normal day can be like the Camino. But the beauty of the Camino is like, how do you take those small things from the Camino to your normal day?
Right. What did you learn? And, it really just, it's what you learned about yourself on it, and take that to your normal life. And that's what's so life-changing about it, because you strip down to who you are at your core and hold on to that when you go on,
And how was did you walk till Musia of Fisterra, or you finished your Camino in Santiago?
No, we walked on to both, actually.
Both, yes.
Yeah, so we walked up to Musia first, and then walked across to Fisterra the second day.
So what do you prefer, Fisterra or Musia, if you have to choose?
It's hard to choose.
I know.
I would say Fisterra, just because of what we got to do there and whatnot. Musia is beautiful. It's much more understated and very much a little fishing village, so you get that authentic and quiet, nice place. So I would love it for that reason. Fisterra, we found a tiny little beach that was like just a couple locals were on it. And that's the beauty of having Maverick, was I would find these little places that just the locals knew about because I wanted him to swim or whatnot. So we got to swim. I swam in the ocean with him. And that was just a really special experience for us. And I love the vibe in Fisterra. It's just it's a mix of the fishing village and a kind of more alive kind of vibe to it. And of course, just walking to the very tip, and we got to watch the sunset. You can't beat that. So
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And after that, how was the going back home? I'm like, did they, as you were mentioning before, how did you change? And also, did Maverick change?
Yeah, that was hard. That's very hard. And, it's hard going on, not just right when you arrive back home, but you have to slowly integrate back into normal life. It sucks, but it was hard. And so many people would ask, well, what's Maverick going to do now that you're not together 24/7? Because I got to go back to work when school starts at the end of August, and we really were together 24/7. And so many people wondered about Maverick. I was like, what about me? I'm sad without Maverick all the time now, But yeah, it was hard. And I wish that we could always strip back to just the simplicity of the Camino, but life gets in the way. But you got to just hold on to the things that you learned about yourself. And it was definitely, I thought I was a more confident person, and I didn't care what anyone thought of me anymore. That was a big thing when I learned on the Camino. So I was much more free I guess, in that sense, once I was back. So tried to hang on to that as much as I could.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing. And also, what was first, the Camino, the book? Were you thinking about writing a book of the Camino? Right now you have 2 books, and
Yeah, I did not think about writing a book for the Camino at all. I write fiction all the time,
okay.
and I've always loved writing. So the 2 books that I have published are fictional novels, and definitely not anything about my own life. But so many people urged me to write about the Camino and write about doing it with Maverick. We did post in like Camino Facebook groups throughout, so there was a lot of people that were following us and were just so kind online about it and asking about Maverick and everything. So that was a lot of an urge from them too. And it took until last year that I finally sat down and started writing this memoir about the Camino. I wrote in a journal every day, so I have that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and everything from the Camino, I don't know if it happens with you, it's just so sharp. I remember every turn and what was on the right-hand side of the trail and what.
It is incredible.
Yeah, you remember everything. It's just so beautiful. So it was easy in that sense to remember, but it's hard to write it.
Mm-hmm.
I had never written something about myself like that, and something nonfiction. So that was hard, but it is done now and it's going through the publishing process now. So it's really exciting. I'm excited for it.
We'll have to invite you again, and once the book is ready and out, because one of the things, it's one of the things that surprised me, how many people write about the Camino de Santiago. A lot of people, they run their experience. Some people write guides. Some people write, fiction, but it's just the writing about the Camino.
Yeah, when you start, because I didn't know. I mean, I didn't read much. I read the guidebook, but then when I was doing my own writing, I was like, oh, I wonder what's out there for this. There's a lot of memoirs and stuff.
Wow. A lot of people are contacting me right now, and I have to read the books, and some of them are great.
I have to read their books.
Yeah, I'm like, for an interview, I'm like, I would like to chat about your book before I interview you. So I have these books, and it's always great that people send you their creation, from the Camino. And I always encourage, if anyone is listening that has written a book, please send it to me. I would love to. I would love to add it to my collection. Just please sign it, and I will nourish like a gift, But it is one of the things that surprised me, how many books are out there.
Yeah.
And as I always say, there's no bad books, there's no great books, there's just one book that will fit in everybody. There's movies like The Way that they're great, but even there's people that don't like The Way. So I always say to everyone, go write your book.
Right.
It's like the same reason I do the podcast. I know that I'm going to encourage someone one day to walk the Camino. So if your book can motivate one person to walk the Camino and that is in the same situation like you, do it.
Yeah. Girl that I ran into quite a bit in the beginning, she started not a podcast but like a YouTube series, and she's like a Camino YouTuber, and she's gained quite a popularity with that. And so it's so funny for me because I saw her and walked parts of it with her to see this from her, so it's really cool that people are just so inspired from it, and just sharing their journeys on the Camino changes what they end up doing sometimes.
And that's why we said, some people like, oh, there's too many Camino YouTubers, podcasts. I'm like, who cares? If this encourage, there's so many different people. If your story can encourage someone,
right,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
If you want to do the Camino with a guide, with whatever, I'm like, just go ahead and do it. That will be your first one, because after the first one comes the next one and the next one. And in your case, that happened. When was the time that you suddenly said, I'm like, I need to go and live in an amazing, huge country that has so many trails all over the States, but no, I need to go to Europe again?
I know.
Why?
I don't know. I think so. Currently, I'm actually looking in probably next year to move to Spain.
That's another side business that I may need to start. Bringing people here to the States, whatever you need, we can talk after the interview, but you're not the first one.
Yeah, definitely. Because America's great. Love it. I just definitely think I have a more European mindset. And there's just something about Spain, really. To me, Spain felt like home. And
thank
it's
you.
Just calling me back. Yeah. So we did go on and do the next year doing Via Francigena, and love.
For the ones that don't know, Via Francigena goes from Rome all the way to Canterbury. It's another huge pilgrimage, but you need 3 months to do the whole thing. Also, you go through the Alps as one of those that you have to plan if you are not a hiker and you don't want to carry like extra gear. But
Yeah.
it's a beautiful one also.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
do the whole thing, the 3 months?
No, because I didn't have enough time teaching wise.
Yeah.
So we had planned to start in Martigny, Switzerland,
Mm-hmm.
and then have a couple days walking in Switzerland before having to cross the Alps at Col de Saint Bernard. And we were going to go all the way to Rome. But I did break my ankle coming down off the Alps.
Break.
Yeah, I fractured my fibula. I didn't know at the
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, it's just a sprain. And the Italians are just so nice. They were
Yeah, women and Italian, we know they're nice, all of them.
Oh my gosh, they were just wonderful, and they helped me so much. This guy, it happened on a side of a road, and I just snapped it. And the guy in the car was coming by. He happened to stop right then. He was like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Do you need help?" Like I was like, "No, I can walk on it. I'm fine," And then not too many feet later, I realized I can't be walking on
I'm
this.
not fine.
So I hopped my way to a bar, and the guy happened to he was going to that bar that had stopped, and he's like, "You're not okay." And within a minute, I had 10 Italians around me giving me ice on my ankle, and calling a bus, and no, this man's gonna take you to the next town. He's gonna put Maverick in his car, and suddenly I found myself in a car, and there we went. So, but yeah, it was beautiful, and I love Italy. Highly recommend anyone go to Italy. It's so beautiful, and there's just so many different parts of it. I mean, we went from the Alps, we saw Rome, we did Cinque Terre, we hiked the Dolomites. This was all while I had a broken ankle after that. So, but we did. It's so varied terrain, and it's beautiful. But there's just something about Spain that felt more like home to me, even though Italy was so beautiful.
And we're really similar, Spaniard to Italians. We also get along so nice because I think we are all about food, family, party, women, cars, soccer, blah blah blah. And like we are really similar, and you can find. But if you are looking, the Camino de Francigena, the Via de Francesco, any of the Caminos in Italy, they have also a ton of Caminos. They are more like probably like the Camino in the old days. There's not many people, just living in a lot of churches and stuff like that. So as you say, a different vibe. Some people really like it, but as I said, a lot of people, they keep saying that the Camino, a lot of people, they come for the tourist experience, for the sport. I'm like, there is something. Don't have to call it religious, don't want to call it faith, call it whatever you want, but there's something with the Camino that is special, as you were saying. I don't know what it is. You have to do it to know it.
Yeah, you really have to do it in order to understand
so
it.
You Camino Frances, then you go to Italy. What is next?
Next for us would be Camino Portuguese.
Wow. Why the Portuguese?
Because I have limited time.
Okay. And that's why I always recommend the Camino Portuguese when you have, 2 weeks and a half, 3. Like a Portuguese is a perfect one to.
Yes. Yeah. I really wanted to do another Camino, and I wanted to do the Portuguese. I've never been to Portugal. So excited to see Portugal. And I do only have about a month, less than a month. So I was like, all right, we can do it, because we did have planned the Kungsleden. It's called the King's Trail in northern Sweden. That had originally been planned for 2020. Obviously, that got axed.
That's a more backpacking, no? You have to carry more tent, more like a real, like more PCT, not like a pilgrimage. It's more like a hike trail, no?
Yeah. There's huts. There's mountain huts.
Okay.
But, there's no towns. You're not going to be able to find anything like that. So
no
tent and your own little stove to cook your food and whatnot. Yeah. So that was our original plan, but that'll be put off. We'll get there eventually. I definitely think so. But yeah.
So Portuguese. Exciting.
Yeah.
And do you know the coastal, inland, the littoral, the...
Yeah, starting in Porto, leaning towards doing the coastal was definitely my draw. It's just a matter of, do I want to fight Maverick to not get in the water the entire time?
So, it's like going to Vegas with someone that likes to gamble, no, and drink.
Yeah. It's like, the toddlers on the leash that you always have to, that's him, So that's what that'll be like, yeah.
He deserves also to play, and, there's beautiful beaches, and as I said, there's not many people, water is cold in Chile, so he may be surprised.
Yeah, that would be great. It's just funny to me, when you said the water's chilly. It's like, yeah, do you know what our water's like here? Because
Yeah.
New Hampshire has tiny, tiny beach, okay? But we do have beach. And it's pretty cold. We don't have those nice warm Mediterranean beaches to compare it to. So he goes in the ocean here right now. So
And he
in
doesn't care.
January and February, he'll be swimming in the ocean. He doesn't
Wow.
care.
Then
Yeah.
no problem in Portugal. Sorry, you're gonna have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much, for being here, for sharing your story with us. I'm sure someone will be, motivated and excited, and someone will be triggered by your story. And that's what we do this, this interviews, because
Yeah.
that's what you said. The Camino is about the people, what you take from other people, what you serve about yourself from other people. But, we'll put all the information about your social media where people can find you on your website. And if they want to read your books, so they can discover all your art.
Yeah.
And I hope that once you have your Camino book published, we will invite you again to visit us and we can talk. But before we go, I would love to share, if you can share some kind of advice for someone that may be going through something in life, whatever it is, some words of wisdom, if you want to call it.
Yeah. Just for me, it's find the things that you're passionate about. Whatever that may be, and for me, that was hiking in any form, because when you find those things and you make time for those things in a busy world, you'll be able to find those little bits of happiness. It can be the simplest things, but it's all about making the time for that. Make the time to do what you love. That's what I have to say.
Make the time to do what you love.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Colby.
Thank
And
you.
we say in the Camino, buen camino, ultrella.
Ultrella.